The Galactic Council chamber was massive. It stretched far beyond what any human eye could see, with walls that shimmered like molten metal and floors that seemed to float. Hundreds of alien species had gathered there, some standing on 6 legs, others hovering in the air, some with scales, others with fur. They all looked tense. The reason was simple. Humans were coming. Commander Zrith, a veteran of countless battles, walked slowly to the center of the chamber. His dark blue scales reflected the soft lights above. He had been called here to speak, to tell the council about humanity, and he could feel the eyes of thousands upon him. There was fear, curiosity, even disbelief in their gazes. Zrith had faced many enemies, but humans were different. He cleared his throat. Council members, I am Zrith, commander of the 9th Strike Fleet. I have fought humans, and I have lived to tell you what I saw. But believe me when I say, what you are about to hear will test your understanding of war. The room was silent. Some members shifted nervously, their long limbs brushing against floating platforms. Whispers traveled quickly, spreading stories that humans were fierce, cruel, unstoppable. But no one had ever fought them directly until now. Zrith began his story. It started on a small border planet far from the core worlds. Our intelligence reported a small human settlement there. A scouting team was sent to secure the area. We expected a minor resistance. We expected victory. But we were wrong. He paused, letting the words sink in. Even the bravest aliens leaned forward. Our soldiers landed near the settlement. They were confident. They had numbers. They had weapons that could level cities, and yet, within hours, humans had turned our advance into a nightmare. Zrith's voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from memory. They fought in ways we could not predict. They used the terrain, hiding in rocks, underground tunnels, and narrow alleys. Their weapons were crude by our standards, but they were precise, deadly, and always unexpected. Every time we thought we had them cornered, they were gone. And when we did catch them, they fought like nothing I had ever seen before. The council murmured. Some members shook their heads. It must have been luck, one alien said, a tall, thin creature with silver skin. But Zrith's gaze cut through the doubt like a knife. Luck? He said, his voice low and sharp. Do you think luck can stop hundreds of trained soldiers? Do you think luck can make a handful of humans survive what should have killed them many times over? I have seen luck, Council. This was not luck. This was something else. He described the first battle in detail. How a small human squad had faced a full alien platoon. How the humans moved like shadows, striking quickly and vanishing before the aliens could respond. How they set traps, simple ones, but terrifyingly effective. And when the aliens tried a direct attack, the humans countered with courage and ferocity that seemed unnatural. They do not fear death the way we do, Zrith said. They fight until the last breath, and even when cornered, even when outnumbered, even when injured, they find ways to strike back. I have never seen anything like it. He took a deep breath. And it was not just one encounter. Over weeks, over months, humans have shown the galaxy that they are unpredictable, that they adapt faster than any species I have faced, that they do not follow our rules of war. They make their own rules, and survive. A quiet tension filled the chamber. Aliens shifted uncomfortably. Some whispered. Others stared at Zrith as if searching for lies, but his eyes, dark and serious, told the truth. He had lived through it. He had seen it all. I remember one night, he continued. We believed we had them trapped. A canyon, deep and narrow. No one could escape. Our soldiers were ready. We waited, and then as the sun rose, the humans were gone, vanished, not a trace. We searched for days. We found no bodies, no tracks, no weapons left behind, nothing. It was as if they had melted into the world itself. Gasps ran through the chamber. Some aliens recoiled. The idea that a small group of humans could escape, an ambush that should have been perfect, terrified them. Do you understand? Zrith asked, looking around. This is not an exaggeration. I have fought many species. I have commanded fleets. I have won battles. But humans. Humans are something else. And I am here to warn you. If you underestimate them, if you assume they are weak, you will pay the price. Every time. He could feel the council's unease. He had seen it before, in other meetings, in other species. But humans were different. The galaxy did not know how different yet. Zrith shifted slightly and began another story. On another world, we attempted a full-scale invasion. Hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers. The humans were far outnumbered. Their planet was small, defenseless by our standards. Yet they fought us for weeks using every tool at their disposal. He described the battle in detail. How humans used tunnels to move unseen. How they rigged the environment to work for them. And how even children and civilians contributed in clever ways that the aliens could not anticipate. They are not mindless killers, Zrith said. They are intelligent, clever, and relentless. They fight together not just for survival but for something greater. Loyalty, courage, honor, whatever you call it. They have it in ways we cannot understand. And when they strike, they do not give mercy. They do not stop. They do not retreat unless necessary. And even then, they return. A silence fell over the chamber. Zrith's words were heavy, full of truth and fear. Many council members had never faced humans. Some thought they were just another species like hundreds of others. But Zrith's stories made them reconsider. He ended the first part of his testimony with a warning. I have seen fleets destroyed by a handful of humans. I have seen my soldiers fall before they even knew what hit them. I have seen courage that defies logic, that defies probability, that defies survival itself. The galaxy will learn to fear them, and if we do not prepare, we will regret it. The council chamber remained silent. Some members looked away, uncomfortable. Others whispered nervously among themselves. The legend of humans, once a distant rumor, was now real in their minds. Zrith stepped back, exhausted from recounting memories that still haunted him. He knew this was only the beginning. The stories of human warfare were endless, and the council, for the first time, realized that they were dealing with a species unlike any other. As he looked at the assembly, he saw a mixture of fear, disbelief, and awe. Some aliens had fought wars that spanned centuries, but even they could feel the shadow of human capability looming over them. And Zrith knew, deep in his heart, that the humans were not done yet. Remember this, he said quietly, almost to himself. Humans are not like us. They are not predictable. They are not weak, and they are coming. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Many species began debating what to do next. Some wanted to strike humans preemptively. Others argued for observation. But all knew one thing. Humans were a force that could not be ignored. Zrith left the chamber quietly, his mind heavy with memories. He had warned the council, but he also knew that no amount of words could fully describe humans. They had to be seen to be believed, and even then they were terrifying. As he walked down the corridor, Zrith thought about the countless battles ahead. Humans were out there, somewhere in the stars, fighting, surviving, and growing stronger. And the galaxy, for all its might, had no idea what was coming. The veteran commander had spoken, the council had listened, and the legend of human warfare had begun to spread like wildfire. The council chamber was quiet after Zrith's first tale. Alien representatives still whispered nervously among themselves. The room was heavy with tension. Many species had never faced humans, but the stories planted seeds of fear. Zrith took a slow breath and began the second story. This next story, he said, is one I will never forget. It happened on a jungle world at the edge of human territory. The planet was thick with vines, towering trees, and poisonous plants. Our intelligence reported a small human recon team there. We decided to strike before they could escape. Zrith's eyes darkened as he spoke. We set an ambush. Hundreds of my soldiers waited along a narrow canyon path. Mines were buried, turrets were hidden, and every approach was monitored. By our calculations, no human could survive this. We were confident, too confident. The council members shifted. Some leaned forward, eager to hear the story. Others looked away, nervous. The idea that a tiny human squad could survive an ambush was almost impossible to imagine. The humans arrived, Zrith continued. They walked into our trap, just as we expected. They were outnumbered 50-1. Our forces opened fire. But instead of panicking, the humans split into small groups. One group drew our attention, leading some of our soldiers down a false path. Another group set simple traps that slowed our advance. They used the jungle, the trees, even the fog to hide their movements. He paused. I watched through my command drone as they moved like shadows. Every time we thought we had them cornered, they vanished. They were never in the same place twice, and when they struck, it was precise, it was deadly. One human soldier could take down 2 of my elite warriors in seconds. Zrith's voice was grim. Our soldiers panicked. Many of them had never fought an enemy like this. We sent reinforcements thinking that sheer numbers would overwhelm them. But the humans were always one step ahead. They knew the terrain. They anticipated our moves. They adapted faster than any alien species I had ever faced. The council members were silent. Some of the smaller species whispered in fear. A few of the more experienced warriors looked grim. They had faced deadly enemies before. But humans were different. Zrith's memory darkened further. We lost 100 soldiers that day. They were elite, trained for jungle warfare, and the humans were only 6. Only 6 soldiers. They held off our forces long enough to destroy our supply lines, blow up key turrets, and escape without a single casualty. The chamber gasped. The numbers seemed impossible. How could 6 humans cause so much damage and survive? Do you understand? Zrith said, his voice low. They do not fight like we do. They do not form predictable lines. They do not rely on brute force. They use their minds, their creativity, their courage. And when all else fails, they do not surrender. They fight until the last breath, and even then... He shook his head. Even then, they survive. He began to describe the humans themselves. They are not physically the strongest, not the fastest, but they think differently. They improvise. They experiment. They learn from every encounter. My soldiers had never faced enemies who could adapt. Mid-battle so quickly, we had to retreat. For the first time in my career, I ordered a full withdrawal because I feared what the humans could do next. Zrith's eyes darkened even further. But that was not the worst part. The humans left behind traps, false signals, and decoys. We thought we had them cornered, but by the time we advanced again, they were gone, not a trace. We searched the jungle for weeks. We found nothing. It was as if the jungle itself had swallowed them. A murmur ran through the council chamber. Some aliens whispered to each other, shaking their heads. Impossible, one said. No species could survive that. Zrith leaned forward. I saw it. I commanded the ambush. I watched my soldiers die. They were real and they survived. Humans are not just survivors, they are predators in ways you cannot imagine. He paused, letting the council absorb the weight of his words. And that is only the beginning. The humans do not fight for glory or honor like many of our species. They fight for survival, for each other, and for something greater. Their courage is frightening. Their determination is terrifying, and their unpredictability, it is their greatest weapon. Zrith's voice grew quiet, almost reflective. I remember one soldier in particular, a human we later learned was called Lieutenant Harper. He was small, barely 100 kilograms. He should have been overwhelmed, but he led his team with precision, striking where we least expected. He set traps, lured our soldiers into ambushes of his own, and even when injured, he continued to command. He did not retreat. He did not panic. He survived. He shook his head slowly. I have fought many legendary commanders of other species, but none compared to Harper. None. He seemed unstoppable. And I know, if we had captured him, we would have faced an even worse fate. The humans think differently. They move differently, and they endure differently. The council members were silent. Some were pale, others stared at the floor. It was one thing to hear rumors. It was another to hear a veteran commander admit that his forces had been humiliated by a handful of humans. Zrith continued. After that ambush, I had to report to my superiors. They did not believe me at first. They laughed, thinking I exaggerated. But my reports were detailed. My soldiers confirmed every detail. And yet, even then, no one believed the full extent of what humans could do. They thought it was luck, coincidence, or error. But it was neither. Humans are not lucky. They are relentless. He paused and looked around the chamber. I have seen species plan wars for centuries. I have seen entire fleets destroyed. I have seen planets fall. But humans fight like nothing else. They adapt, they improvise, they endure, and they survive against impossible odds. Zrith's voice grew grim. That day in the jungle, I learned something I never expected. Humans do not play by the rules. They do not follow logic. They do not fear death the way we do, and that is why they terrify me more than any species in the galaxy. He shifted slightly, his tail brushing the floor. Many commanders I know have fought humans and died. I was lucky. I survived. But I have carried that memory every day since. I have nightmares of their cunning, their courage, and their sheer unpredictability. And I know that any battle with them in the future will be even worse. A hush fell over the council chamber. The aliens were beginning to understand. Humans were not just another species. They were something else entirely. Something dangerous, clever, and unstoppable. Zrith's gaze swept across the assembly. I tell you this not to frighten you, although perhaps I have. I tell you this so that you understand. Humans are coming. They fight like no one else. And when you face them, you will face the impossible. He leaned back, exhausted from reliving the memories. That is why I am here. That is why I speak to you. The galaxy must prepare. Humans are not to be underestimated. They are not to be mocked. And they are not to be ignored. Tiatikun murmured. Some argued, others debated, but all were silent in one thought. Humans were different. Humans were terrifying. And humans were coming. Zrith stood silently, letting the weight of his words sink in. Outside the chamber, the stars glimmered, distant and cold. Somewhere out there, humans moved through the galaxy, surviving, adapting, and growing stronger. The council chamber was still tense. Zrith could feel the unease radiating from hundreds of alien species. Many were still whispering about the human ambush on the jungle world. They were beginning to realize that humans were not ordinary. They were extraordinary. Zrith took a deep breath. If you thought the ambush was impressive, he said, wait until you hear about the fortress. This was a place no species had ever taken, a massive orbital installation above a mining colony. It was protected by hundreds of turrets, shields, and patrol ships. The aliens believed it was impossible to conquer. They were right, for everyone but humans. The council members leaned forward, their curiosity mixed with fear. Many species prided themselves on their technology, their fleets, their armies. Yet here was a human story that could challenge all of that. Our intelligence reported only a small human force approaching the fortress. We expected a minor raid. We did not expect what followed. Zrith's eyes darkened. The humans arrived in a small fleet, barely 20 ships. Compared to our hundreds, they were insignificant. Our commanders laughed. We thought it would be a quick victory. We were wrong. He described the fortress. The orbital station was massive. Its walls were made of reinforced alloys, layered shields, and automated defenses. Boarding parties had failed before. Our own forces had tried and failed. And yet, humans approached with confidence. They did not hesitate. They did not fear the impossible. Zrith's voice grew grim. They did not attack in the way we expected. No straight lines, no predictable formation. They used decoys, small strike teams, and synchronized attacks that confused our AI defenses. One team attacked the exterior shields, while another infiltrated the maintenance tunnels. They seemed to know the layout better than our own engineers. The council was silent. Even seasoned warriors were astonished. Humans, small in number, were challenging a fortress designed to withstand entire fleets. Srith continued. The humans moved quickly, silently, and without fear. They set explosives in places no one thought to guard. They disabled key systems, forced sections of the station into lockdown, and yet, at no point did they panic. Not one human froze, not one hesitated. They adapted to every trap, every countermeasure, and every ambush we set for them. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. I watched my own soldiers fall again. Our best boarding squads, our elite fighters, our war machines, all stopped by a few humans who refused to die. One team of 6 humans disabled a turret array that would have destroyed half our fleet. We could not understand it. We had never seen tactics like this, strategy like this. Srith shook his head slowly. It was not brute force, it was not numbers. It was intelligence, creativity, and courage. Humans do not simply fight. They think. They improvise, they innovate in the middle of battle. They turn weaknesses into strengths, traps into weapons, and they inspire each other to fight harder, longer, and smarter than any other species. He told them about one human in particular, a captain named Reyna. Captain Reyna led the boarding operation. She coordinated her team flawlessly. Even when one of her ships was destroyed, she adapted, using the wreckage as a distraction. She moved through the fortress like she belonged there, guiding her team through air ducts, maintenance tunnels, and even enemy corridors. Every move was precise, deliberate, and deadly. Srith's gaze swept over the council. Our soldiers were demoralized. They had trained for this, studied the fortress for months, yet they were defeated by humans who seemed to anticipate every action. And when we tried to retreat, the humans adapted again. They did not allow us to reorganize. They pressed forward, relentless, efficient, and fearless. He paused, his tail flicking in frustration. By the time the humans left the fortress, several sections were under their control. They captured critical positions, destroyed key systems, and vanished again before reinforcements could arrive. They left chaos behind, and yet they suffered almost no casualties. Almost none. And they did it against impossible odds. The council murmured in shock. Even the most experienced war commanders struggled to comprehend what Srith described. A small human force, taking on a heavily fortified station, and winning. They do not fight like any other species, Srith continued. They do not rely on brute strength or overwhelming numbers. They rely on their minds, their courage, their teamwork, and their creativity. They adapt faster than any alien species I have ever known, and they endure hardships that would break us all. He leaned forward, voice quiet but intense. I have seen soldiers of countless species fall to despair in battle. But humans endure. They fight on even when injured, outnumbered, or facing certain death. They inspire each other. They adapt, they survive, and they win, against all odds. Srith took a deep breath. I was there when they left the fortress. I saw the damage, the confusion, the chaos. I saw my own soldiers shaken, wondering how so few could achieve so much. I saw the truth about humans, and it terrified me. He looked around the council chamber. Many of you may think I exaggerate. You may think humans are lucky that they stumble into victory. You are wrong. Humans do not rely on luck. They rely on ingenuity, courage, and willpower, and that is why the galaxy must pay attention. Srith paused again, letting the council absorb the enormity of his words. After the siege, the alien commanders of that sector admitted defeat. They could not explain it. They could not understand how humans had done the impossible. And yet it happened. Humans had captured a fortress no one else could. They had done what was thought to be unthinkable. He shook his head slowly. And this is why I warn you. Humans are not just another species. They are a force unlike any other. They think differently. They fight differently. And they survive differently. You cannot predict them. You cannot outmatch them by numbers alone. You cannot intimidate them by strength. You can only respect them. or face destruction. The council members were silent, overwhelmed by the story. Many whispered among themselves, realizing that humans were not to be underestimated. Some older species, who had fought in wars spanning centuries, began to see humans as a new benchmark for warfare. Srith concluded the tale with a warning. Remember this, council members. Humans will appear where you do not expect them. They will strike where you are weakest, and they will survive where others perish. The siege of the impossible fortress is only one example. There are countless more, and if you ignore them, you will regret it. He stepped back, exhausted. Reliving these battles, recounting the cunning, bravery, and unpredictability of humans, drained him. But he knew it was necessary. The council needed to understand the truth about humanity. Outside the chamber, the stars of the galaxy shone cold and distant. Somewhere out there, humans moved through the void, fighting, surviving, and growing stronger. And the council, for all its knowledge and power, had begun to understand that these humans were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Srith left the chamber quietly, his mind heavy with memories. He had told 2 stories so far, but he knew there were many more. Stories of human courage, ingenuity, and relentless determination. Stories that could terrify even the most seasoned alien commanders. The council chamber was quieter than before. The stories Srith had told about ambushes and sieges left many aliens in stunned silence. Some whispered nervously, others stared at the floor in disbelief. Humans were no ordinary species. They were clever, cunning, and relentless. And Srith had saved the most astonishing story for last. He straightened his posture, and all eyes turned to him. "If you think humans rely on numbers to win, you are wrong," he said. "This story is about a single human soldier, alone, against an entire alien platoon. What I am about to tell you sounds like legend, but it is true. I saw it with my own eyes." The council leaned forward. Some smaller species held their breath. They had never faced humans, yet already the tales of their skill and courage left them uneasy. Srith began. It happened on a desert world, a mining colony far from human space. The planet was harsh, scorching heat by day, freezing nights, and endless sand dunes that stretched to the horizon. My forces were sent to secure the colony, to prevent humans from using it as a staging ground. We did not expect resistance. At first. He paused. Then came the human soldier. His name was not important. Later we learned it was Corporal Herek, but at the time he was just a man standing against hundreds of my soldiers. Srith's eyes darkened. We had a full platoon, trained for desert warfare, equipped with the latest weapons and protective suits designed for extreme heat. We had vehicles, drones, and orbital support. And yet, one human held us back for hours. He described the first encounter. Jarek appeared at the edge of the colony. We thought he would flee. Instead, he ran toward us, alone, using the ruined buildings as cover. He seemed small, fragile, but there was something in his movements, something in his confidence that made my soldiers hesitate. And that hesitation cost them dearly. Srith recounted the battle in detail. Jarek set simple traps, using sand and debris. He improvised weapons from the ruins. Every time we thought we could advance, he was there, striking from a new angle. He moved faster than we expected, appearing and disappearing like a shadow in the desert sun. And he was smart. He predicted our tactics, adapted to our strategies, and used our numbers against us. The council murmured. Some of the older warriors shifted uncomfortably. They had faced elite soldiers from hundreds of species, but this was different. One human, outnumbered, was holding back trained platoons. Srith's voice grew quiet, almost reverent. What was most terrifying was his endurance. He was injured multiple times. Burns, cuts, fatigue. But he never stopped. He never panicked. He did not retreat. He fought with precision, cunning, and relentless courage. Every move he made seemed to anticipate ours. Every trap he set was deadly. And yet, he survived. He paused to let the council absorb the enormity of the situation. I watched my soldiers fall one by one, some from exhaustion, others from clever traps. They had never faced an enemy who could outthink them at every step. And all the while, Yarrick advanced, pushing back against impossible odds, never faltering, never hesitating. Zrith's tail twitched with frustration and awe. By the time we realized the truth, our platoon was in chaos. We had hundreds of soldiers, all trained, all equipped, but Jarrick had divided and conquered us. We had to retreat. Our own officers called for evacuation. And yet, he survived. Alone. The council gasped. Some whispered, "Impossible." Others looked pale. A single human had defeated trained alien soldiers using intelligence, improvisation, and courage. It defied all logic, all predictions. Zrith continued. After that battle, my soldiers told stories that spread like wildfire among our fleets. They spoke of Jarrick as if he were a spirit, a force of nature, a single human who could face hundreds and survive. They called him a legend, and in truth he became one, not because of strength alone, but because of courage, ingenuity, and determination, qualities humans possess in abundance. He looked around the chamber. I have commanded armies, fought thousands of species, and faced enemies that could crush worlds, but I have never seen anything like that human. Never. His actions that day forced us to rethink every tactic, every strategy, every assumption we had about humans. They are not predictable. They are not weak. They are terrifying in ways no one can fully comprehend. Zrith paused, taking a slow breath. And that is why humans are dangerous. They do not fight like other species. They do not follow the expected rules. They adapt. They endure. They innovate. And when it seems all hope is lost, they find a way to turn the tide. He recounted another moment. When my soldiers tried to capture Jarrick, he used the environment to his advantage. He led them into a narrow canyon where our numbers became a disadvantage. He used debris, sandstorms, and even the heat to slow us down. He fought as if he knew every weakness we had, every flaw in our equipment. And again, he survived. The council members whispered nervously. Some were pale. The story was unbelievable, yet Zrith's tone, his seriousness, left no doubt. It had happened. Humans were not just fighters. They were survivalists, warriors, and tacticians in ways no species had ever seen. Zrith's voice softened slightly. What is remarkable is that he did not fight for personal glory. He fought for his comrades. He fought to protect the colony. He fought to survive. That combination of intelligence, courage, and purpose, it is unique to humans. It is why even a single human can change the outcome of a battle or even a war. He shook his head slowly. By the time we left the planet, we had suffered hundreds of casualties. Jarrick was gone. We searched, but he vanished into the desert. We never found him. But the legend remained, and it spread. Zrith's eyes swept across the council chamber. Humans do not need large numbers to make an impact. They do not rely solely on weapons or technology. They rely on creativity, on courage, and on determination. And that is why they are feared, even by the most experienced commanders in the galaxy. He paused, letting the council absorb the lesson. A single human soldier, against hundreds, against impossible odds, survived and triumphed. That is the measure of their danger and the measure of their greatness. The chamber was silent. Every species present was forced to reconsider their assumptions. Humans were not just fighters. They were forces of nature, capable of turning the impossible into reality. Zrith concluded, his voice low but firm. This is not an isolated incident. There are countless stories like this. Humans endure, they adapt, they innovate, and they fight with a courage and determination that no species can fully match. You cannot underestimate them, you cannot predict them, and if you face them in battle, you will understand what I mean, too late. He leaned back, exhausted from recounting the tale. His scales were slick with sweat, his eyes heavy with memories. He had relived the fear, the awe, and the horror of that day. But he knew it was necessary. The council had to understand the truth about humans. "Remember this," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Humans are not like us. They do not fight like us. They survive where we fail, and they will shape the galaxy in ways we cannot yet imagine." The council murmured in response. Some whispered in fear, others in awe. A few older warriors nodded solemnly, understanding that humans were a new kind of power. And Zrith knew that he had done his duty. He had warned them. Outside the chamber, the stars of the desert planet glimmered faintly. Somewhere humans continued their journey through the galaxy, fighting, surviving, and growing stronger. And the council, for all its knowledge and authority, had begun to understand that humans were not a species to be underestimated. The legend of the single human warrior, Corporal Jarek, had been told. And the galaxy, for the first time, began to grasp the true power of humanity. The council chamber was tense. Hundreds of species gathered under the massive dome, each trying to comprehend the stories they had just heard. The ambush, the siege, the legendary single warrior. Each tale made the assembly realize the same truth. Humans were unlike any species they had ever encountered. Commander Zrith stood before them, weary but resolute. His scales shimmered faintly in the light of the chamber, but his eyes were sharp, focused. "You have heard my stories," he said. "You have learned of ambushes, sieges, and the courage of a single soldier. I did not tell these tales to frighten you, though perhaps I have. I told them so you understand the truth about humans. They are dangerous, they are clever, they are relentless, and the galaxy has yet to see their full strength." The council murmured. Some aliens whispered. Others stared at Zrith in disbelief. Some species were skeptical, thinking that perhaps he exaggerated. Others nodded quietly, remembering the reports from scouts and intelligence officers that matched his accounts. Zrith continued. "The humans do not fight like other species. They do not rely solely on technology, numbers, or brute strength. They rely on intelligence, creativity, teamwork, and determination. They endure hardships that would break other species. They adapt to the impossible and survive against overwhelming odds. And they fight for something greater than themselves, a concept many species do not understand: loyalty, courage, and the will to protect each other." He paused. "I have fought many species. I have commanded fleets. I have seen wars that span decades. But humans are not just warriors. They are unpredictable, adaptable, and terrifying. And the moment we dismiss them as ordinary, we will regret it." The chamber was silent. The council members were beginning to realize that humans were not just another species. They were a new benchmark for warfare, strategy, and survival. Some species that prided themselves on centuries of military experience now found themselves humbled. Zrith leaned forward. "Let me tell you why this matters. Our galaxy has faced threats before. Aliens who conquered worlds, fleets that destroyed planets. But humans fight differently. One soldier can hold back hundreds. A small fleet can defeat a massive armada. And they do not follow predictable tactics. You cannot anticipate them. You cannot intimidate them. You can only respect them or face annihilation." He paused again, letting the council absorb his words. "The humans we have faced so far were only a fraction of their full potential. They are learning, adapting, and growing stronger every day. And they do not need permission from anyone. They do not wait for approval from councils or alliances. They act, they survive, and they fight when necessary. And that is why they terrify me." The murmurs grew louder. Some council members argued. Others tried to discount his accounts. "Surely you exaggerate," one alien said, a tall, armored commander from the Xylan species. "No single soldier can hold back an entire platoon. No small fleet can defeat our warships." Zrith shook his head slowly. "I wish it were exaggeration, but I have seen it with my own eyes. I have commanded those platoons. I have watched soldiers fall before a single human. And I have survived only by respecting their ingenuity, their courage, and their relentless spirit. Humans do not fight like others. They fight to win, against all odds. And when they fight, even gods would tremble. He paused, his voice lowering. The humans are coming. Not as diplomats, not as negotiators, but as warriors. They are learning about the galaxy. They are watching. And when the time comes, they will act. And the galaxy will not be ready for what they can do. Some council members shifted uneasily. The weight of his warning settled over them like a shadow. The realization was clear. Humans were not to be underestimated. The stories of ambushes, sieges, and legendary soldiers were not isolated incidents. They were patterns. A single species, capable of surviving, adapting, and defeating opponents far stronger than themselves. Zrith's voice grew firmer. I do not speak of humans lightly. I have seen fleets destroyed by smaller human forces. I have seen soldiers who refuse to die, who fight with intelligence and courage beyond comprehension. I have seen the impossible become reality, and I have come to tell you, humans are not just a threat. They are a reckoning. A hush fell over the council. The word reckoning carried weight, even among the most stoic species. Some whispered, in fear, others in awe. Even seasoned warlords understood the implication. Humans were changing the balance of power in the galaxy. Zrith's gaze swept over the chamber. The council must decide how to respond. You can attempt to ignore them, you can attempt to negotiate, you can attempt to prepare defenses, but understand this, humans do not wait. They adapt, they strike, and they endure. If you underestimate them, if you delay, if you assume they are weak, you will pay the price. He paused, his eyes scanning the assembly. The humans do not fight for conquest alone. They fight for survival, for freedom, for each other. And that combination of intelligence, courage, and purpose makes them unstoppable. They learn from every encounter, adapt to every challenge, and grow stronger with each battle. They are not just warriors, they are catalysts. And they are coming. The chamber was silent, the weight of his words settling into the minds of every species present. Some aliens shifted uncomfortably, realizing that the humans were not just a distant curiosity. They were a force the galaxy could not ignore. Zrith continued, his voice calm but intense. I have seen countless species fight for dominance, for resources, for survival. But humans fight with a combination of unpredictability, ingenuity, and courage that no one has seen before. They are terrifying not because of strength alone, but because they defy expectation. They adapt, they endure, and they win. He paused again. Remember the ambush on the jungle world. Remember the siege of the orbital fortress. Remember the legend of the single soldier who held back an entire platoon. These are not isolated events. They are examples of the human way, and the galaxy has yet to see what they can do when fully unleashed. Zrith's voice lowered further, almost a whisper. I do not know what their ultimate goal is, but I know this. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is not predictable. Humanity is not to be underestimated. And if the council fails to recognize this, we will all regret it. The murmurs grew louder, and a few council members exchanged worried glances. Even species that prided themselves on centuries of warfare began to understand the gravity of Zrith's warning. Humans were unlike any threat they had faced. They were cunning, relentless, and unpredictable. Zrith leaned back slightly. I have fought many wars. I have seen the rise and fall of empires. I have commanded fleets, armies, and soldiers across the galaxy. But humans are something different. They are not just a species. They are a force of nature. And the galaxy must prepare for what is coming. He paused, letting the silence fill the chamber. Every alien present understood the weight of his words. Humans were coming, and the council could no longer act as though they were a minor species. The galaxy was about to change. Zrith concluded, his voice steady and unwavering. I have warned you. I have told you the truth about humans. They are clever, courageous, relentless, and adaptable. They survive against impossible odds. They fight with intelligence and ingenuity that no species can match. and they endure when others fall. Respect them, fear them, prepare for them, and, when they arrive, be ready. The chamber erupted into debate. Some species wanted to strike preemptively, others wanted to observe and study humans, but all were united in one thought. Humans were a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy had underestimated them for far too long. Srith left the council chamber quietly, his mind heavy with memories. He had told the stories of ambushes, sieges, and legendary human warriors. He had warned the council of humanity's cunning, courage, and unpredictability. And he knew one thing for certain. The humans were coming, and when they arrived, the galaxy would never be the same. Outside the chamber, the stars stretched endlessly across the void. Somewhere humans moved through the galaxy, learning, adapting, surviving, and preparing. And the council, for all its knowledge and authority, was only beginning to understand the true power of humanity. The veteran commander had spoken. The Adi stories had been told. And the galaxy, for the first time, began to grasp the full scale of human warfare and the reckoning that was coming.